Welcome to Normal Men, everybody. We've got an excellent guest lined up for you this week. You know him as Theophyte on Blue Sky. You either love him or hate him. Very polarizing figure. We personally love him and think he does good posts. And so here we are. So, Theo,
I'm about 90-10 for what it's worth.
Some of the posts are bad, but most of them are excellent. And
I'm going to ask you which posts are bad, because I'm going to get 4 different answers from you guys. Hi.
Yeah, this is secretly just posting peer review.
Yeah. This is a posting struggle session today.
Cool. Great.
This is Normal Men, a podcast from 4 men who are clinging desperately to normalcy in an era when that's asking a bit too much. I'm George in Charlotte.
In D.C., I'm Proctor Malone.
In outer Florida, I'm low-tax speedrun enjoyer.
And I'm Ed in Boston.
I feel like we can't say that. We can't say the posts are bad and he's polarizing when we have Will Stansel out there. Although maybe not so true in the last week and a half or so.
Yeah, that man needs some critical support at this point.
Yep. Yeah, everybody's sort of made their peace with him now.
He's going to be president someday.
Yeah. Look, when a Chapo host says Will Stansel is all right, I think something is Will Stansel is doing something useful and productive, and we should all celebrate that.
Frankly, the world has just suddenly put everybody who has any good ideas on exactly the same side.
Yes.
He's not going to be president, though, because we're not having a president with a Minnesota accent.
He's actually from Gaston County, believe it or not. Across the river from
North Carolina?
Yes.
Oh,
yes.
Wow.
Yeah.
What contest in hell did he win to go up there?
He grew up in Belmont, which is this little suburb. It's not as bad as Gastonia, but it is pretty bad. Pretty, but
the county seat of Gaston County is Gastonia.
Yes.
That's pretty good.
Bad fantasy world building.
It's probably the worst place to live in North Carolina. I think Fayetteville is probably the next closest comp. Salisbury often gets put on these lists too. But yeah, it's not great.
What is the rationale for it being worse than Fayetteville? At least you can get drugs in Fayetteville or something?
Yeah, because the military base, the army base is right there, so lots of drug supply from that. Yeah. No.
Yeah, but they might kill you.
Well, that's always a risk with a drug dealer.
I mean, that's a risk I'm willing to have you take.
I don't do drugs, so I don't know why I'm being volunteered for this.
I meant local.
You're local.
Fair. It's easier for me to get to either Fayetteville or Gastonia than the rest of you.
You are the man on the ground.
Gastonia and Gaston County in general is ex-urban, Republican hell. I mean, it's just that's just what it is. It's very, very conservative and very, very suburban, ex-urban sprawl, and then into rural. And it's not wonderful, but
it's what Cobb and Gwinnett used to be.
Yes.
10 years ago.
Yeah. And it'll go on the same trajectory. On the other side of Charlotte, we're in North Charlotte. They're already on the trajectory. Gaston County will catch up too, but for now, it's not great. Anyhow, critical support to Gaston County's own Will Stansel and his counter ICE efforts in Minneapolis.
Along with the rest of the city of Minneapolis, who have been doing excellent work these past few days. We're taping this on Sunday, so it's been a little over 24 hours since the Alex Preddy shooting, and it's a bad scene out there.
A little bit.
The good news from my perspective is that it seems like this is fully broken contain. People are talking about it everywhere, not just in kind of the political throughways. My wife's gardening channels on TikTok are lit up with anti-ICE sentiment that normally is reserved for late season freezes.
My mom is mad about it.
Your mom is.
My mom is mad about it. My mom just had back surgery, right? And sent me a completely drugged up. What the hell is this? Please send me pictures of your baby. I'm mad about ICE text. All 3 parts, 3 consecutive sentences in one text. Right?
Critical support to Theo's mom for 3 reasons. One, that is a very, very healthy coping mechanism, is looking at baby. That is that's great. Good. That perfect. Fully endorse that. 2, for actually being mad about this, which is, everyone should be, of course. And 3, for the back surgery, which I hope she recovers from soon.
Yeah, she's totally fine. It was a scheduled back surgery. It's not
no emergency LTAPs or anything.
It's still back surgery, right? But totally fine.
I mean, as Theo said, it posted on Blue Sky a little bit ago, maybe like half hour to an hour ago. Like even the conservative subreddit, the mods there who are usually full in on Trump propaganda are really on the struggle bus and have basically given up and are just letting routine conservatives go, no, they murdered this guy.
There's an offline dynamic too. House oversight for DHS has already set a hearing to bring head of ICE and Commissioner of U.S. Customs and Border Protection. Andrew Garbarino is the House Republican who runs that committee, and he is Long Island Republican in a Trump plus 13 district, which in normal times would not be particularly vulnerable, but I think could be this fall. So yeah, I mean, it's not just breaking through online, which 100% absolutely, and maybe that matters more, but there's also actual Republicans saying, oh no, we have to do something about this, which is, as we all know, extremely uncommon for this particular administration.
It turns out that when you get the people with guns mad, you might have to do some backpedaling.
Mm-hmm.
Weird.
Yep.
I think they just didn't check what the facts were, right? Like, I mean, like the administration, simply does not care what the facts are, right? And are completely unreactive to contradictory facts, right? And when you have 5 different angles on the same shooting, right? And they all show exactly the same thing, and there's really easy to see video of the gun being carried away from the scene, right? It is very hard to produce a narrative instantaneously without looking at the video, right, of what actually occurred that comports with what actually did, right? I think they expected to just be able to bully their way through it like they did with the Renee Good shooting, and they just can't.
Well, even that one, they've struggled to bully their way through, right? I mean, any kind of neutral observer there came down very clearly on one side of what happened. You could argue that there was some spin that was moderately successful, but there's no real argument, I think, at this point that there have been 2 completely unjustified murders of random people in Minneapolis over the past 2 weeks by ICE. And you can only pull that for so long before people start getting really mad.
Yeah, I think the car moving thing probably helped you keep some people from the Trump administration perspective there. But this one was so clear cut that there's just nothing to talk about. And they're all backing themselves into a corner now. And they don't know how to get out.
It's also gender too, right? This is a white dude who was carrying,
as all things are.
Yeah, well, of course. No,
True.
but that's the gender is contradictory to the narrative. It's one thing to get mad at the lib white chick, but this is not that character. This is them that's being shot to death by ICE. And
Right.
it doesn't change our perspective. That reality doesn't change the perspective of anyone on this podcast or probably anyone listening to it. But for MAGA, ooh, geez, that's a problem.
Because it's not just a dude, right? It's a beardy dude with a tactical pistol.
Yes. Yeah.
Yeah, when I saw that, I was like, is this a cop?
$2,000 pistol, right? Which is, that is not the kind of demographic, right? Which is typically associated with the left.
That's a bring your own pool cue to the pool hall kind of pistol there, right? That's somebody who is seriously invested in this as a hobby at minimum.
Or maybe worse, it's someone who's seriously invested in their gun being part of their identity and therefore is part of another identity group, right? By virtue of that identity formation process. And I don't think it really matters whether it's, like you said, Proctor, if it's just pure, I'm going to buy the fancy stuff for my gun, so I have a fancy gun because I'm a fancy gun guy. Either way, that isn't a direct assault on the conception that the only people who are, quote unquote, interfering with ICE officers are blue-haired lunatics. Like that, we all knew that to be true anyways, but.
Yeah. And, there's been significant debate about whether or not, we should talk about the various virtues of the deceased, which he had many. I mean, this guy, everything we read about him makes him seem like a fantastic guy. I'm in the we need heroes camp, and I think Alex Peretti is a hero. But he was doing research for the VA. He was a nurse in the ICU working with veterans. Nobody seemed to have anything bad to say about him.
The gun was no angel, though, as we've established now.
Yeah, right. I mean, like it's a SIG, so it has whatever issues those have. I don't know.
Well, it's that SIG.
It's that SIG.
Yeah, it's the accidental / negligent discharge SIG.
Yeah. This is where we say words about pretension recoils and nod sagely. Anyway, yeah, this is a SIG that apparently sometimes goes off, but it doesn't appear that it did in this particular situation. And besides, that's completely irrelevant.
Held above the guy's head.
Yeah.
I mean, the gun was entirely away from his possession before they opened fire. Like, it's totally irrelevant.
Yeah. And, to Andy's point a little bit, I think that one of the issues here is that if CBP is now at the point where they are pre-executing people who are threats to them because they are threats to them because they have a gun or because they had a gun, then that's a major and immediate problem for anybody who is potentially a threat, for any gun owner, for instance. For any, you extend this logic out and you start looking at things where even if you were not necessarily inclined to resistance, violent or otherwise, you're directly in the targets because you're going to pop on whatever filter they're doing for, military aged men, as has been their parlance with the immigration invasion stuff.
Yeah.
So I think that's one reason why this is moving some weight in conservative circles is that this is more of a direct threat to their well-being than some of the other stuff is.
I mean, the other thing is fundamentally, you can't tell, I think what they expected was they can say these people have absolute immunity and that they're going to get exactly the same kind of character of misbehavior as they did before, right? But that is not the case. It moves the line up, right? So if you say you have absolute immunity, right? That means that there is literally nothing you can do which your bosses won't protect you from, right?
Yep.
So as long as they are worried that they are going to get the axe at best, right? That is one thing. But the moment they're told there's nothing that you can do that you will be punished for, they're going to do the thing on their list that they want to do that they were afraid of before.
Yes.
Yeah. Well, and I mean, also insofar as there's some peril that that the ICE and CBP people are potentially encountering, it shifts their incentives there, right? This guy has a gun, even though he's not reaching for it. He has a gun. He might theoretically shoot me, but if I shoot him, that's certainly not going to happen, right? Yep. And there's no downside to me shooting him because I'm not going to get punished. We still don't even know the guy's name unless things have broken in the last half hour or so. So that's where the incentives lie at this point.
So the feds won't even release, if you look at emergency filing that Trump judge got. I said the district court judge here is a Trump appointee, right? Who granted a don't cover up this case. I don't even know what even procedural mechanism is there for that. I've never seen anything. I mean, I was a law clerk, right, for a district court judge. I don't even know what procedural mechanism that you would do to get that, and a Trump judge granted it, right?
Yeah, if this is the guy I'm thinking of, it's not just a Trump judge; it's a 2-time Scalia clerk.
Yeah.
So this guy is belly of the beast here, but he's doing the right thing and should be applauded for it in this case.
I mean, I think that one of the things that's happening, at the district court level behind the scenes is that we have something on the order of 2,300 cases where district court judges have said this is an illegal detention. What are you doing? Right? I think that like whether or not like any appellate court has decided that they've lost the presumption of regularity, right? Like at the district level, I think that just, like no matter what the orientation of the judge is, that like they've lost the presumption of regularity, right? Like
they've also completely embarrassed the Supreme Court in the process of all this, right? Like Kavanaugh specifically has been made to look like an absolute idiot through this whole process. And rightfully so, he was an absolute idiot for what he put down in his whole Kavanaugh stop parable, which is to say that he basically said, oh, U.S. citizens have nothing to fear for, and, they'll just be allowed to go about their day as soon as they establish their U.S. citizen, which we know is not the case. People have been detained for multiple days, et cetera, et cetera. And so you are now making Kavanaugh look like a complete clown, and he knows that. We know that from oral arguments this term that he is trying to walk back where he went with that. And so they're not going to get the same kind of deference from the Supreme Court that they got in the first 6 months of the administration. I feel very confident saying that. I'm not saying the Supreme Court will step in and, fix all this and grant some sort of injunction against detention of U.S. citizens for any reason and yada, yada, yada. I'm just saying they're not going to get as friendly of a hearing as they got before because they made the Supreme Court look like idiots.
I mean, I think
how much does that matter?
I think what the Supreme Court has been doing is sort of like the same thing that's been happening for individual ICE CBP agents, right, writ large.
Yes.
Like that, like the Supreme Court has been firing warning shots, right? And saying like, oh, you can continue to do this, right? Here's the line, right? Expecting that like the Trump administration will stop well before the line, right? But what the Trump administration has actually been told is, you can actually do whatever you want.
Yep. And we've seen the same thing with the Fed too, how they've interacted with the Fed and the litigation there. Trump v. Wilcox pretty clearly signaled like, you guys can't mess with the Fed. And they just said, great, we're going to completely ignore that and mess with the Fed as much as we can. And it's not going well for them. And it was very clear in oral arguments for the Lisa Cook case that they are aware that they are being messed with.
What you're neglecting is that they just love messing with the Irish. And that's fair. You don't got to hand it to them, but
that's
old-timey 19th century racism is back.
That's right. I
mean,
they
already have the calipers.
Yeah, we're doing the skull measuring and the IQ stuff anyway. We might as well go all in on it.
All right, so that's enough with the news, I think. I am really glad Theo's here because we're going to get the chance to talk about some really weird stuff that has nothing to do with current events. And the thing I really would like from Theo right now is to walk us through the world you have built for your role-playing game that you master, because you have posted about this for years now at this point, and you post random out of context images and you post some of the background, but I've never heard like the 5-minute elevator pitch because it sounds like such a cool thing. So please do that.
Okay, there are two things going on right now, right? Like, so I need a outlet to do machine learning stuff, right? So like, I feel like when people are doing, like normal programming that's, like with machines that don't misbehave, right? There's typically some kind of like open source project that they're working on, right? So back in 2022, right, I was Google's head of privacy for machine learning. I didn't know shit about machine learning, right? I mean, like I was a privacy guy. I'd come in with the, like privacy math. I hadn't worked on anything that was related to like generative AI, right? So this Russian bank, Sberbank, right, had released the first model that like did like image generation, right? That was public and that actually worked, right? So there'd been things before that they were crap. So I took the open model and I built a translator shim that like translated prompts from English into Russian, right? And I started fine tuning this thing because I needed like images for my like tabletop game, right? Like as I worked on that for a while, and then Stable Diffusion came out, and like I was like, okay, so like. And I had this problem at work, right? My problem at work was like, okay, so I put stuff into this model. What comes back out on the other side, right? Like, what is it actually safe to train this stuff on that the model won't just regurgitate, right? And so, like, as sort of like a side effect, I had a role-playing game that I needed images for, right? Like, and started doing that, right? So I've been working on like image modeling, right, for like what, 4 years now, which is more or less as long as anybody has been doing it. I mean, more or less, more or less as long as anybody has been doing it and producing things that look like anything, right? Like, and so like I have like a pet model, right? It's based on base weights, right? Like that you can just download. And it is mostly at this point trained on its own outputs, right? Like, and it spits out images and stuff, right? And like the underlying setting is sort of like so like there's this like set of like Chinese detective stories, right? Like I think like the typical way you refer to them is like the Judge Dee mysteries, right? It's set in the Tang Dynasty, right? And it's about like this guy who's like a traveling judge going from town to town, like in the sort of like Chinese borderlands, solving crimes, and sometimes the solution to the crime is told to him by a ghost, right? Like, but this is considered like very realistic, you know, like within the like milieu in which it's written. And then like I'd also read a whole bunch of like Gene Wolfe, right? Like, so like it is essentially like the setting is essentially like extremely far future, like Judge Dee mysteries.
For those of you who haven't seen some of the image output that Theo has put online with this, like there was a period for a while in there where he would pop online and post 20 kind of hallucinatory images of that you know looked kind of Earth adjacent, and you talk to him and he'd be like, yeah, you know, I just flipped a bunch of Byzantine saint icons into the model, and here's where we are now.
Theo's images are vaguely frightening, or were for a while there. It was, if you've ever played, and there's only like 20 of us who have done this, if you've ever played the game Scorn, the images sort of followed in that spirit.
Yeah. So like the thing is that like, you know, with this kind of, with like, you kind of got to work with what you're given, right? Like, and there is like a just kind of general uncanniness to AI slop, right? That like, I think you can't get out of it, right? Like, so you do kind of have to lean into like that uncanniness because really like the stuff that you produce, right? Like doesn't look like a human made it, right? Like,
yeah, true.
In a lot of cases, right? So it doesn't make aesthetic choices exactly like a human is. There's something kind of wrong about it. And you do have to kind of lean into that if you want to get something compelling, right? Because you can't lean away from it, right? You can't fix that problem. Or really, like, Nano Banana has done a really good job. But, like, you couldn't fix the problem at the time that I was building this stuff, so I guess I'm locked into it now.
I mean, it's interesting because, I mean, you're right that it's not necessarily the same as, like, a human-generated aesthetic, but there's a very clear unifying aesthetic for a lot of the stuff that you produce.
Well, I mean, like, so the thing is, like, you don't have to teach the model the distribution that actually exists, right? So, like, you know, there's a distribution of natural images, right? And so you can think of this model as being, you know, like, if you pick, like, a dimension representing a continuum from like one thing to another in the model, right? So a set of like weights in the model that co-vary that lead from like one thing to another, right? You can imagine it as like sort of a single dimension in the model. It's a stack of images that like continuously turn the Mona Lisa into the persistence of memory, right? You know, like, so you have like these sort of like axes of variation within the model, right? So like one of the things that I did in order to like kind of produce the thing that I'm actually doing here is I would just lie to the model about what the distribution actually entailed, right? So I'm like, here's some pictures of like Byzantine saints, and here are some pictures of like brutalist like architecture, and here are some pictures of like other stuff. But here's the thing, these are all actually one thing, right? And so you're kind of teaching the model, you know, like sort of like an axis of statistical variation that doesn't really exist by line.
So it's hallucinating now, this world of Byzantine saints living in brutalist buildings.
Yeah, exactly, right. Because you've told it it's all the same thing.
Right. And it's then extrapolating what other things look like.
Right.
In this,
exactly.
In this distribution. That's super cool.
Right. Yeah. I mean, exactly. Right. So I mean, like, I keep telling people, like the point is not really like the images, right? The images are like a side effect of like, you know, like this interesting kind of like statistical object, right? That like, you know, like represents stuff that I told it, but it's not stuff that existed before I told it that it did.
Yeah, that makes a lot of sense. And like this is going to be a little fuzzy. Don't at me, ML people. But like, this is not that far off in terms of the mentality of trying to do something new with a large language model.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
Like a lot of people often protest, well, how can it come up with something new? Well, this is how it comes up with something new. You put new stuff into it. Right. You tell it something. And I mean, I do not do image generation stuff because only recently did I have enough computer for it. But like, you run into this a lot when you just want to go make something that you don't have a firm spec for, right? Like you have to look at what it does and say, no, do the other thing, right? Like not that, yes, that. And then you just feed it into itself until you get, iteratively closer to what you want.
Yeah,
in this case, what he wants is weird, laudatory, but like,
and hold on, we are going to come back to the actual qualitative, like what is going on in this universe you've built here, Theo. So I know you're trying to distract us with all the whiz bangs and the distributions and the model weights, but we're going to come back to that. So
for the
don't
record,
worry, listeners.
Staying very distracted.
Yes.
So I mean, like the thing is, like I have been doing like the LLM side too, right? Because like sometimes. So, I mean, like I was just watching like the Dungeons and Dragons movie because somebody reminded me that it existed, right? Like, and there's this like really great moment, like right at the beginning, right, where like the main character's on trial and like there is a guy who's just a giant bird dude, right, whose name is Jarnathan, right? And like that is such like an accurate like representation of when you have like 30 seconds to come up with a guy whose name you didn't know you needed before somebody asked him what his name is. You just go like, oh, it's that's the bird, Jarnathan, right? Like you said Jonathan, you replaced like 2 letters, right? So like, well, what if I had like an LLM thing that made it so like I didn't have to do that, right? So like right now I have like a little version of Claude, right? Like with a whole bunch of like Python based tools and like a retrieval assisted generation. It can look stuff up like Google search, right? Except in a whole bunch of documents I wrote, right? And so if I need to produce something and I don't want to say the name Jarnathan, right? I can just pop stuff out of that, right?
I am going to be thinking of Rob Delaney and his karate teacher for the rest of the day because of Jarnathan.
So I mean, like it's, and the really question is like, it doesn't seem obvious, right? You put all this stuff in a model, right? Like, and like there's the, like there's the information processing inequality, which is like you can't get more information out than you put in, right? Like into a statistical system, right? Like, okay, so where is this stuff coming from? Well, okay, so this like a large language model is like just a big pile of statistics that takes, like some text and produces, that's a stem, right? And produces a continuation of that, right? Like you have to do some stuff to the model to make it talk like a guy, right? But fundamentally, all it is a function that maps from like, I said this to this thing comes back out of it, right? And it just
super sophisticated autocomplete thought remains undefeated.
It is super sophisticated autocomplete, right? Like it's just like it turns out that like I mean, so people say like, okay, super sophisticated autocomplete, and then like you have to tell them like, yeah, but we don't know how autocomplete works either.
But enough about Tim Cook.
I'm enchanted by the thought of this as kind of a latter day Swede-McDykel generator. You guys are familiar with the parable of Swede-McDykel.
Yeah.
So Swede-McDykel is the first name on the list of the rosters from a 1993 video game, Fighting Baseball.
Oh, yes. Okay.
That has a bunch of sort of name adjacent names. They sort of have the shape of names, but they're definitely not names.
Onsen Sweeney. Like
Bob McDugnut.
Yeah, exactly. So like there's this great Reddit thread that I encourage you guys to dig in on at some point, but somebody actually went back and reverse engineered how he thought they came up with those names. And it's a hybridization of a hockey roster and a baseball roster from 2 different years. And like, there's a first letter substitution thing going on. But like, I mean, it's it's procedurally generated in the sense that he slammed two spreadsheets together and got this list of names.
It's all stuff that like, sort of like makes sense if you're using like Japanese phonology, right? On, like the actual rosters of like Western names.
Right. So like Jonathan or like the Byzantine saints are in some sense a descendant of that, except using way more than two spreadsheets.
Right, exactly. Right. Yeah.
And I just think that's kind of a cool nod to the ancestors, as it were.
So then tell us a little bit, tell someone that, again, we've all followed you for a while, so we've gotten some ideas, but tell us about what this world you've created looks like. Like we're in the far future and...
Oh, okay. So like essentially, like I just wanted like what if moral facts were like really, 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 really bad, right? So, the world is really bad right now, but like there are certain things that like aren't necessarily like bad about the world. Like for instance, like Homo erectus didn't survive till the modern day, right? That would be really bad if it happened, right? Because what do you do with like a whole bunch of guys that are almost sentient, but not quite, right?
Right.
Like those guys' lives end up really bad, right? Or, like what would you do, right? Like if somebody had engineered it so that like we were stuck in tyranny forever, right? Like how would it be like, how would you live in that world, right? So like, like Star Trek, right? So like one of the things about like Star Trek, right, is like the best sort of Star Trek episode, right, is a kind of like moral puzzle for people in a world that is way better than the one we live in, right? And so like, a lot of things about this world, which is set in, like a world where, like we achieved like singularity and artificial intelligence like over and over and over again. And the things we create keep throwing themselves into black holes because they find out something that they can't explain to us that makes them sort of like throw themselves into an artificial intelligence elephant graveyard, right? Like, and every time we do it, right, they produce technologies that lock humanity into a like more and more authoritarian shape forever, right? And like frankly, like if you consider where I work, right? Like you can kind of see like worked until recently, right? Like you can kind of see like where my concerns about that come from, right? But like the thing that like the way that the game actually runs, right? Like you've got like an emperor living in, time dilated seclusion. He barely ever says anything. You've got a bureaucracy that operates essentially on autopilot and has been operating on autopilot for, like longer than civilization has existed to date, right?
This doesn't sound at all familiar.
Yeah. And then you have like, like the characters initially, right? Like, so like the first sort of like set of characters I ran were people who were actually trying to do good within this extremely bad system, right? They were traveling bureaucrats, traveling judges, right? Who would try to resolve problems, that were way worse than anything in the real world, right? Like, got like the northern frontier of the empire, right? And the empire insists that it's in control of its northern frontier, right? It absolutely is not. Right. So you've got like roving warlords, you have like judges showing up with absolutely no authority, right? And trying to resolve things for peasants that have been engineered to be peasants, right? Like that's what they were made for, right? But they shouldn't have been made for that, right? Like that's a problem that is way worse than anything that would occur in the real world, right? Or they show up in like the last city that produces any kind of electronics, right? And the factories are incredibly dangerous and there is a labor uprising, right? And if the labor uprising actually happens, right, like that's it. That's the end of computing, right? So like, it's sort of like the standard sort of like plot of the game is like, here's something really bad and you have to make some really bad decisions to get out of it, okay?
What is the most moral thing to do in this situation where...
What is the most moral thing to do in a really bad situation?
Right. The trolley problem, but more tracks and more trolleys.
Yeah, exactly. Just like trolley problem after trolley problem after trolley problem, and like, and then some combats in between, right? Because like,
sure, yeah.
Right, and you have to roll dice.
Right, you have to roll dice, right? Like,
yeah.
All of this very much fits your posting over too, I will say. Like this is a valuable backstory to understand the Theophyte account.
I mean, like, so I guess, you know, like you have to know, like here's what I did. I wasn't really public about what I did at Google. I dealt with law enforcement. Like I dealt with our law enforcement export systems, right? And machine learning, right? So LLMs and image generation, and then children's data, right? So like...
That's the trifecta right there.
And then before that, right, like what did I do? I was a law clerk, and then before that I was a domestic violence sexual assault social worker. Right? So like I have never... Like I keep telling people that like this thing which I did for 10 years, right, which I worked at Google, right, like was the easiest job I'd ever had because like before that, like I was a law clerk at a district court in Idaho. And before that, I dealt with DVSA issues, right? Like, that's not like... So I mean, like, on the other hand, like, I think I'm, like, kind of like a congenital, like, pessimist about, like, difficult moral issues.
DVSA being domestic violence and sexual assault for those who are not stooped in the jargon here. Yeah, I mean, like, in some sense, this is a move from lower scale to larger scale for you over the course of a career, right? Like the resolution has changed.
But I mean, there's a difference, right? Like, so it was actually harder, you know, like, so before even that, right? Like I worked at a homeless shelter, right? Like kicking people out of a homeless shelter, right? Like worst thing I've ever done in my life, right? Like, even though I know, right, I made decisions at Google, right, that affected 1 billion people, right? Like making a decision that affects 1 billion people, like versus kicking one guy out of like their home in the middle of winter, right? Like because they got in a fight, can't have the violence there. Right? Like, I know which one of them feels worse to me. And it's the one where I looked a guy in the face and said, you have to sleep in the cold.
Yeah. That's hard, man. I mean, there's something interesting there, though, in the context of what we just talked about with your tabletop RPG.
Yeah.
That as you move to this higher scale, as you move to this different resolution, some things get easier.
Yeah.
And there's maybe something human about that sort of one-to-one connection is more affecting to us.
Yeah, and yeah, I mean, to bring this back around to like the thing we started with, right? Like, I think that's why, you know, like individual martyrdom, right? Like, is the kind of thing that attracts attention rather than, you know, like tens of thousands of people being quietly disappeared.
Yeah, I mean, probably 30,000 people died on the streets in Iran a couple of weeks ago.
Yeah, exactly. Right. Like, I don't know any of them, but like this one guy, right? Like, I'm madder about that than Iran. Like, should I be? I don't know I mean, I can't do anything about the thing in Iran. I can't do anything about the thing in the United States, right? But I know which one of them I feel worse about.
Well, what I was going to say is, you know, we've got probably 30,000 dead in Iran, and the image that I have in my mind when I think of the Iran protests is I think it was a Canadian woman lighting a cigarette with a picture of the Ayatollah.
Yeah.
Right. That like that's for me the received reality. And there's, you know, some of that is about media intermediation, but some of that is also about personalization. That
we aren't simply built for the scale of civilization that we live at, right? Like, you know, like
no, definitely.
I mean, we can think about bad things happening to persons, but it's really hard to get like the same sort of intuitive like horror at bad things happening to people.
This is true across a range of other emotions and contexts as well, too. Like, nobody in human history has been wired to be perceived by millions of people at the same time. And now that is happening on an industrial scale.
Yeah.
Right? Like the number of people who are exposed to that many other people, whether it be for completely benign reasons of just everyday viral stuff, or much, much worse outcomes, or the eye of Sauron of a government settling on you and blowing up your spot, whatever it is, like because of phones and the internet and a variety of other technology pathways, what used to be the preserve of a very small number of people in any given society, even as recently as, say, the 1970s or 1980s, when celebrity and the perception of millions of people was a very real thing, but extremely, extraordinarily limited in terms of the number of people it impacted.
It was also one way.
It was also one way. Now it is a two-way thing that is experienced by lots of people all the time. And that's not going well.
No, it's not. I mean, like, I used to do Twitch stuff, right? Like I've mentioned before, but I had a partner offer I turned down because it was making me a crazy person. Between watching the numbers go up all the time and then also listening to people I did not like, right? Like, wasn't worth it. And like, I'm fortunate that I have a tech career. I did not need it to live. One of the biggest things that chased me out of that space was a very well-known influencer who has been on like the Today Show, being very, very happy that her fighting game winnings had gotten to the point where she could rent an apartment. Right? Like, and I'm just like, no, this is a bad score. And one of the things that Theo mentioned, I mean, I have not worked at Google, but I've worked at fairly large scale, and having people talk at you is much, much worse than making decisions that affect people. I kind of think that's part of why politicians are cooking themselves, right? When they look at their mentions on Twitter or on Blue Sky, how could you not go insane? Whereas, like, making decisions around trust and safety, those decisions are going to impact people no matter how good your intentions are, no matter what decision you make. Someone's going to get the short end of that stick, whether economically, whether from the perspective of morals. But, like, that's a lot more intermediated than somebody, adding you and telling you how much you suck.
Yeah.
And it's just not something people are built for.
Yeah.
I had a very different outlook on the internet before I started doing that stuff. And now it's interesting hearing Theo talk about that, because it's that at a larger scale. And I'm kind of like, I dodged a bullet.
For politicians, we need to make being able to answer polls on a mobile phone not only legal, but mandatory, so that politicians can keep a sense of scale.
You don't like the Baileys?
Baileys are good again, I think, now.
I think there's a formalization of what you're referring to there, Ed, where it's very, very easy to find Pareto improving solutions where people are better off, but we're already kind of there at a Nash equilibrium where someone has to lose out a little bit to make any improvement. Sorry, let me rephrase this. There are not many places where we are past the point of a Nash equilibrium. In other words, to make everyone better off, or almost everyone better off, someone's got to lose. And even if that someone is a rent seeker or some sort of like person that really we shouldn't be too worried about losing out, it's really easy for them to go after the politician and make their whole thing seem much more important than it actually is.
George, how can you be a football dork and then start talking about Nash equilibriums?
Because I'm a smart football dork that went to Duke.
He's not a football. He is a dork, and he was a football player, but he's not a football dork because he went to Duke.
That's true.
But
that's true.
The classic example of this is the NRA, right? For years, for decades, really, the NRA made it seem like something that only quote unquote hurt a very, very small slice of the American population, which would have yielded large benefits to almost everyone else, was some sort of just disastrous thing because they were so vocal and so committed to their outcome. And so you got this really bad, inefficient outcome where everyone could have been better off, but because of one small vocal interest group, everyone was worse off. Well, it's the same thing with every single issue now, because everyone's got the ability to create a level of negative feedback that feels like a tidal wave, but is in fact not that significant because of social media and because of other ways we have of being perceived.
The other layer on that is that, particularly in the context of scale and a larger kind of activity, so you've got ordinal welfare improvements, right, where somebody's improving their welfare in an absolute sense. You've got cardinal welfare improvements, but you've also got ordinal welfare improvements where you've got things moving around relative to other people. And one thing that we saw over the course of the past several years is that people perceive status threat and they value that really, really highly when you have decreases in inequality or when you have movements of status or welfare relative to other people that you perceive. And that's a tough problem to solve, especially when you can see it.
I mean, so if you look at like Elon's purchase of like Twitter, right? Like, I think a lot of that, right? And the way that the VC guys sort of all piled in on that, right? Like, I think a lot of that was literally to make people stop humiliating them.
Yes. Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
What else was it? Are they just going to light money on fire for what? The ad revenue? It sucked. It was never good. Like, it was purely to be the mods.
Yeah. And none of those VC guys have come out better for the trade either. Like, they still all look just as bad. They just hear a little bit less how stupid they are. And, that's a good outcome for them, but it doesn't change the fact that they look like idiots. One good example from Bill Ackman, who's a hedge fund manager, but not a VC. Imagine actually posting this thought to the whole ass internet to read. What is it about Minneapolis that the 2 tragic ice shootings took place there within 2 or so weeks of each other? Could it really be a coincidence?
He's the dumbest motherfucker on earth.
Like, what? This man is an idiot. Like, he is publicly declaring to himself he is an idiot.
Activist, man.
As for funding the Twitter takeover, y'all need to be fair. Some of it was the Saudis wanting to keep up with their dissidents. So
you're not wrong. But like the person that has backfired for the most, obviously, is like Elon Musk, because now everyone just tells him how much he sucks all the time. And he refuses to get away from it. Do you remember like that time he tried to do video game streaming?
Yeah.
Yeah. Oh my God.
Like, the most embarrassing thing imaginable.
The chat was nothing but people ripping on him and inviting him to open wide so they could dip. Like, it was bad. It was a bad time. And he had to sit there on camera trying to not look affected by it. And now imagine that's his every day.
Look, you can just unequip the 7 shields to fast roll. It's fine.
Yeah, and like they are not prepared for this, because also, like, look at the companies Elon Musk has worked with, right? Like, whether he drove them onto the rocks or not, I still am curious about moving PayPal to Windows in like the 2000s. That was an interesting decision he got turfed for. Anyway, but like, no one is adding you because of SpaceX, or maybe they are. Like when you shatter the windows in their house, but like, or Tesla, love the car, but like, Twitter is people's daily lives.
Yeah.
Which is the saddest thing I've said in a while, but it all goes back to him. He bought the chance to be the hate sink for that entire pile of deranged people. And I don't know how. So can you
cool down an orbital server farm with a hate sink as opposed to a heat sink?
We might have to hang Eigen Robot off the edge and just like trail him behind. That was a very online sentence, and I'm not going to apologize for it.
I am very sorry that people outside the rationalist adjacent world ever had to find out about Eigen Robot.
Yeah. We've had that conversation about who these people are, and it didn't go well.
It's so fucking embarrassing that, like...
I had forgotten about Eigen Robot until like 2 days ago.
Can we explain Eigen Robot? Somebody Proctor.
No,
Theo.
he is a shitposter / proto-fascist / probably all actual fascist, who I believe lives in St. Paul. So he's saying some really fun things about his neighbors right now. Just generic, like, we've talked about the rationalist community, quote, community, unquote. Plus, like, it's just, he's a shithead. He's just a very loud shithead that got popular on the internet for contrarian takes, and his fetish is being yelled at. I don't think I can explain it any other way. You know this guy.
So is he...
You don't know this guy, but you know this guy.
He's Stansel's Wario.
I would say Waluigi.
Yeah, that's true. Luigi and Waluigi is probably a better descriptor there.
The internet is a bad place. If you're not on it, stay that way.
So to switch gears for a sec while we got Theo here, and stop me coming off, and we'll delete if neither of you guys want to get into this. It occurs to me that both Andy and George have an experience right now that I don't have, which is parenting young children during the second age of Trump. How is that? How do you approach that? How do you...
Oh, it's great. Vivian doesn't understand anything. Like, it's like she learned to point at her mouth the other day. That was excellent, right? Like, like she liked being outside when we went to No Kings. She was waving at people, right? Like, had a fun day, right? Like, liked it that people were yelling. She's very happy. Like, I'm really concerned about like what happens like 4 years from now. But like, like my kid is just like, like very, very happy to be around mama and dada.
Super satisfactory primating.
Super satisfactory. Like, because I mean, like there's nothing like I have like abstract worries about like, the world like that she's going to grow up in, right? Like, none of that affects her, right? Like,
Right.
so I mean, to a certain extent, right? Like, and she is extremely demanding of my attention, right? So it is extremely difficult to pay attention to like all the other bad stuff. It's like 13-month-old pawing at my face.
My daughter's about 2 years older than Vivian, so a little further along. Up to this point, it has been a non-issue for all the reasons that Theo just outlined. It's getting to become an issue. She is starting to become aware of the fact that the people aren't around forever, and that some people that used to be here are no longer here. Abstractly, she hasn't really thought through the implications of that yet. And then there's other stuff too. So we were sitting having dinner with my mom the other night in a poke bowl place, and there was a big flat screen TV on showing I believe it was ABC Nightly News, which is shout out to the poke bowl place for choosing one of the least politically charged news outlets you could come up with, the local broadcast news from ABC. And there was a series of stories about Liam, was it Rodriguez in Minneapolis, the 5-year-old boy who was detained by ICE?
Liam Ramos, I think.
Liam Ramos, thank you. Liam Ramos, the 5-year-old boy that was detained by ICE in Minneapolis, and she saw this boy who could be one of her friends. And the boy is standing beside an ICE agent. You can't see the ICE agent, but like there's clearly an adult figure next to her, a male adult figure next to her. And she goes, that boy's with his daddy. And there was stuff happening on the screen quickly, right? Like this was one thing in the story. So then by the time I had sort of parsed what she had said, thought about how I was going to respond to that, and opened my mouth to do so, we had a picture of Jack Smith on the screen. And she's like, who's that? So I just skipped over it. I didn't, because explaining the context, it's honestly not unlike hurting an LLM a little bit. Like you don't want to send them down like a rabbit hole if you don't have to. Like if they give you the opportunity to just jump across something that is going to be a very complicated thought, then it's not always bad to take that hop, skip, and a jump. So I said, oh, well, he's a lawyer like mommy. And of course, the broadcast is continuing on in the background. And so the next thing that comes up on screen is it's either Trump or Vance. I can't remember which. And they're wearing a suit just like Jack Smith was wearing a suit. She goes, that's a lawyer. And so she's just noticing that, okay, they're on TV and they're wearing a suit just like that first guy was. So that must mean they're a lawyer too, which is a perfectly reasonable thing for a 3-year-old brain to do. Like she's doing the thing. And I said, okay, well, no, they're not. They're someone else. Not all people who wear suits are lawyers, and some people that do are, and some people that do aren't. And so, so I say all that to say that Theo, enjoy Vivian's times at the No Kings protest. I took Isabel to a No Kings protest last year as well, and she had a great time there. And it's great. There's lots of great stuff you can do with them when they're still below that level of understanding the broader world, but it's coming. And it's going to be hard. It's going to be one of the harder things to do with her because my daughter's just been so easy for us in so many ways. But I'm not looking forward to having those hard conversations. The thing that I do to get some solace from is that I know that she trusts me and my wife as any child trusts their parents, and she loves us, and she knows that when we are explaining something to her, we're trying to help her understand, and we have her best interests at heart. And so whatever we have to explain and deal with and navigate, she's going to fall back on that. That's going to be what she falls back on. And that gives me a lot of hope that we'll figure it out.
Is this something that at this point, like you're talking through with your wife, how to approach talking to your kid, or is it mostly kind of on the fly solo, you do what you do and then you explain it to your partner later?
It depends on the specific thing. I mean, so for instance, the conversations around mortality, like it's on our to-do list to have a deep, okay, how are we going to talk about this with her? We are not religious. So for a religious person, my mom said at one point, oh, so-and-so has gone to heaven. And my daughter does not understand that as a concept. Like she has had no religious instruction whatsoever. It's just random words to her. So she's, okay, they went to heaven. Okay, done. Like that, whatever. But we're not religious, so we're not going to say that. But what are we going to say instead? I've said on the podcast before that if I was to get a tattoo, the tattoo I would get would be non fui fui, non sum non curo. I have a very specific idea of mortality. I'm not sure teaching that to a 3-year-old is necessarily the best path.
I think that's fair.
And just to reiterate, the translation of that is, I was not, I was, I am not, I care not. And so, it's very stoic. It's the Roman equivalent of rest in peace. And, but again, we have to, you're right, Proctor. We have to have that conversation, and parenting is the ultimate team sport. So for the big stuff, we absolutely talk it through. For little stuff on the side, well,
That'd just make a really weird 8-year-old.
I'm looking forward to Vivian being 3 in 2028 when everything will obviously be all better.
Inshallah.
Yeah, I hope so.
I mean, it might happen.
I think it's pretty good odds it happens before then, right? Like, what's the odds he makes it to...
I think you're talking about two different it's happenings.
I don't think so.
Which are good. No, it's the same. There's not a lot of room between the two it happens.
There's a lot of room in there, though. And I'm not excited about most of it.
I think we can actively help one of the its happen by making the other it happen.
That's true.
Don't get the podcast subpoenaed.
Yeah. The other way around, Proctor.
My fondest hope is that we have a sufficiently short period of time here to get it remedied sufficiently that neither of y'all's daughters will have to delve too deeply into this until it's time to start learning about the history of the 21st century.
Boy, do I not want that to be her first conversation about mortality.
That is fair.
No, it's actually hard when they're not here anymore.
I mean,
it's going to be really weird to explain why you're out in the street with a vuvuzela when this happens, if you haven't already sort of laid the groundwork ahead of time.
I do have a vuvuzela in my garage, so yeah, I
knew you did.
Okay, so baby girl, here's the 2010 World Cup was like this.
Vuvuzelas are $9 on Amazon right now. If you want to, it's going to go up.
Yeah, you got to get them in bulk now.
Yeah, we used to use them for clinic defense. We would play them while the antis who own the property next door to the clinic I defend at had their weekly prayer spectacular where they bus in people from churches around Charlotte, not in Charlotte so much, but around Charlotte, to do a big prayer concert, walk, intimidation exercise, trying to dissuade patients from getting healthcare. And we would play the vuvuzelas to drown out their nonsense when they were doing the concert and just generally be annoying. And it had mixed results.
I'd assume that was a soccer vuvuzela, but I'm pleased to find that it's a politics vuvuzela.
No soccer vuvuzelas. I think if you tried to bring one of those into B of A, you'd get in trouble pretty quickly. They are annoying as hell.
If you do a soccer vuvuzela around Europeans for long enough, it will turn into a political vuvuzela.
It evolves like Pokemon.
The kids thing is so interesting because it is such a moving target and it's so kid specific too. There are lots of kids, I think, who just don't think about the world around them abstractly enough for something like a man on TV said something to like really register as important. I think almost all kids would pick up if something happens and mommy and daddy start behaving differently, or mommy and mommy or daddy and daddy. And, that's a thing, but abstract stuff. I don't think my daughter, and knowing Theo, I very much doubt Vivian, will end up in that category. But I think for most kids, it's more about the mood of the people around them. And so protecting them and teaching them in periods of when history is happening is more about emotional regulation and being thoughtful how you speak to them, regardless of the other contexts, than it is what's actually happening on the ground.
But, you guys are both still at ages with the kids where substantially their inputs are being controlled by you.
Yes.
Not entirely, but substantially.
No, entirely in my case. Vivian is not doing anything on her own.
Right.
Other than
that kid already has a Blue Sky account. I'm sorry you had to find out this way.
Other than, she is doing stuff on her own, but it's mostly like eating lint off the carpet.
No, but you're right, Proctor. And something happened the other day, totally germane thing. I handed my daughter an Oreo, and I had never eaten an Oreo with her before. And she popped the Oreo apart and was starting to pick off the cream with her finger. I didn't teach her to do that. My wife didn't teach her to do that. So it must have been someone at daycare. This is all fine, by the way. I don't care that someone taught her how to eat an Oreo by popping it open to lick the cream first. That's totally fine. Mm-hmm. But it is a sign that we are losing control of the inputs. You know, she's been in daycare since she was 7 months old. So we've always been aware that she's going to learn stuff and have feelings and see the world without us being able to control the inputs, as you put it. But that was like a really sharp example of what you just said, where like, yeah, we're not in the driver's seat exclusively anymore. We're 90% maybe, or 80% or whatever, but that number is only going down from here.
You're really underselling the user experience design from Nabisco on their Oreo product, George.
There's no way she just intuited to pop a cookie open like that.
I don't know.
She might have. We should ask this. We should do a survey on that on Blue Sky.
How do you eat an Oreo?
Well, no. When did you learn to pop the top off the Oreo?
Probably after the first time you tasted the Oreo.
Yes, probably so.
That's culture propagation, right? I mean, that is one of those kind of like anthropological markers where like you could look at different sets of like monkey tribes and how they open fruit.
No, I think it's
the Oreos.
I think it's biological. I think you look at it, you see the cream, you go, no, the cookie is bullshit, and we're going straight for the cream.
Right, but even then,
we should do a survey
the cream with your fingers, or do you bite the cream? Like,
that's a good point.
No, options. You bite the cream with your lower teeth.
That's not what George said, though.
That's crazy. True. Wait, with your lower teeth?
Yeah.
Lunatic behavior.
What the hell?
I'm with Theo on this one for what it's worth. I don't know if this is an East Coast, West Coast split or what.
How does that even work?
I'm not hearing it from y'all.
You put the whole cookie inside your mouth and then
just like scrape it like using your...
Yeah.
This is the worst conversation we've ever had.
No, I mean, like this is why, like, you've got like those front incisors that protrude just a little more than everything else, and the reason, from an evolutionary perspective, is so you can scrape the cream out of an Oreo, right? Like, the incisors on the bottom, right, are the same length, and they're shorter than your canines on the bottom, right? Like, this is just like...
Plus, the lip, too. You do have less lip coverage up top than you do up in the bottom.
The thing about your theory, though, Theo, is Hydrox came first.
It's crazy that they called them that.
I mean, we still got Triscuits in the wild, and nobody thinks that's weird.
Oh, people eat those with their mouths.
Do you put cheese on a Triscuit? Who puts cheese on? What kind of cheese are you putting on? What kind of cheese are you putting on a Triscuit?
I mean, if available, Cougar Gold, obviously. Hell yeah.
Yeah, I was gonna say it's time to get these perverts are berating me over my Oreo take, and it's time to get to the canned cheese.
That is cheese that fought fascism. That is anti-fascist.
That is actually true. Yeah,
it is actually true. This is anti-fascist cheese.
It was developed. It was never actually deployed to fight fascism. It was developed to fight fascism. But
we
won the war
atomic bomb to fight the Nazis, and we never deployed the atomic bomb against the Nazis either.
Absolutely correct. To my knowledge, we also did not deploy Cougar Gold against the Japanese.
Right. Well, okay. Like what I'm saying is, Cougar Gold is part of the arsenal of democracy, and I will not have like low tax like denigrate.
What is Cougar Gold for those of us who? Well, I know what Cougar Gold is. I think everyone on the microphone. Yeah. Okay. But why is that different from Easy Cheese?
First, a little backgrounder. Through one of these accidents of the internet, both Theo and I have spent significant time in the very small town of Pullman, Washington, which is where Washington State University is. We did not encounter each other in Pullman, to my knowledge, at any point.
Ever. Yeah. I have never seen this man before.
Despite, overlapping. I was born in Pullman. I spent 18 years there, and Theo was there for a significant number of years that overlapped with a good chunk of that.
I mean, that's where I was a DVSA social worker.
Anyway, one of the things Washington State University produces, other than veterinarians, we're good at that, is Cougar Gold, which is a cheese in a can. It is not a spray cheese in a can. I want to differentiate this from the easy cheeses of the world. It is more of a cheddar consistency.
Yeah, with crystals.
With crystals, yes. There are crystals that form over time. The cheese ages in the can. It continues getting better for about 18 years. After that, some people think it gets a little bit too nutty, but aged Cougar cheese is a delicacy above, fresh Cougar cheese.
Right. Yeah.
The stuff that Ferdinand's will sell you right out of the gate is about a year old, maybe 18 months. I'm not sure. I'm not sure what the
I don't know.
current standard is.
I have one question, Proctor.
What's that?
$33?
Yeah, it's worth it, man.
It's worth it's a wheel of cheese in a can, right? Like,
yeah.
This is a substantial amount of cheese.
It's like 2 pounds of cheese.
I'm buying some, but I'm a little sticker shocked.
It is kind of an issue that once you crack the can, you now have 2 pounds of cheese you have to deal with in fairly short order because it's cheese. I mean, it still keeps well out of the can.
I did not see the 30-ounce part. I retract my concern.
I'm looking on Amazon right now, and a 30-ounce pack of three 30-ounce tins are going for $174.17 on that particular platform.
Oh, no, that's absurd. Just buy directly from the university.
I am entering my credit card right now.
If they have those little super hot cheese nuggets.
The ghost pepper.
The ghost pepper.
Yeah, the ghost pepper ones. Those are really good.
Yeah. The ghost pepper snack cheese, that's not in a can, but you want that if they have that. I occasionally just stop and think for a second, and I'm like, man, I really wish I had some of that.
It will destroy your guts. Like, if you want your entire digestive tract annihilated, right? Because the first thing is, you are going to eat the entire thing of cheese. Right? The second thing is, after you eat the entire thing of cheese, you will have eaten an entire thing of cheese.
True.
Right? And it is very hot cheese, right? And
it's like a pleasant burn on the tongue. It's not like a stunt cheese. It's right, yeah. It's a good eating experience.
It's a good eating experience, right? But there's various levels of lactose tolerance, but nobody is that lactose tolerant.
I feel like we've got Theo and Proctor engaging in this sort of like Rube Goldberg, Washington State device of recreating Buc-ee's propaganda that the Texans engage in. Like, no, you have to eat the beaver nuggets. You have to eat the brisket sandwich or whatever the hell.
I think that you just need to order the cheese.
Yeah.
I'm in the process of doing that.
Okay, and in the process of ordering the cheese.
As I am doing this, there is a rich text on this website. For example, they have a 40-can limit on available flavors. This limit is per customer, per flavor, per month.
Yeah, the other cheeses are also very good, but Cougar Gold is what you should start with.
Oh, I understand that.
I am the guy ordering 1,200 ounces of Cougar Gold.
Okay, so you are every.
But you also need one dill garlic. You need one dill garlic. All right.
All three.
I feel like we should probably address the elephant in the room on Cougar Gold, which is why is it in a can? If Theo wants to tackle that one.
I have no idea why it's in a can.
I assume it's to fight fascism.
No, yeah, it actually is to fight fascism.
You just fight fascism with that, exactly, right? You can ship it overseas and put it in the hands of American soldiers.
No, it is very directly to fight fascism. So Cougar Gold was invented at Washington State University in the late 30s in response to a request from the Army to come up with a cheese that was not in wax, which was how cheese was transported at the time. And the wax would break when you transported it on rail or sometimes on ships, and the cheese would rot. So they needed a solution to that. And the solution was put the cheese in a can. And then we figured out plastics, so we stopped doing that. But there was a brief shining moment where cans were our best bet, and Cougar Gold was the bright hope for the armies of democracy.
This cheese is the equivalent of the ship that made ice cream for all the other ships, right?
I have not seen a website this 2008 since 2008.
I feel like 2008 is far too late a vintage for this website.
Yeah, it works, so I'm going that far late. But
does it have an under construction GIF on it?
No, but it's got some real decisions around things like save and continue.
It does have real GeoCities vibes.
Probably that website was extremely tech forward when they built it in 1999.
Oh, I expect it was. $13 for shipping is not bad.
I actually thought they really got you on the shipping. I mean, that's a quarter of the price of the can.
I mean, I'm getting 2 cans.
A third. What am I doing? I got the ghost pepper bites, so
Nice.
I thought you're out here talking about Nash equilibrium, but not dividing.
look. Talk fast and break things.
Oh, did I lose my cart? Okay, no, I'm good. I'm good.
What? Use the printable order form link to print an order form.
See, if you guys go to Pullman and go to Washington State University and you go to Ferdinand's, which is the ice creamery and cheesery on campus, they have a viewing room where you can go and you can overlook the making of the cheese in all of its glory.
Oh God, really? Oh God, is this like? So this is like the Tumors store in Auburn and Hershey, Pennsylvania, like mashed up.
Okay, you've got to understand that there is nothing else to do in Pullman, Washington.
That's true.
Like, you can watch the cheese get made and then watch WSU lose a football game, right?
Yep,
And
I've done that actually in Pullman, Washington.
Hey, now they won the Pac-12 this year.
That is true.
We did on point differential, I think. Yeah.
Yes,
Oh, Cougs.
in a 2-team conference, they won it.
And then you can go over to Moscow, which is a weird place.
Moscow is a weird place.
So, I mean, I say that I'm from the Palouse, right? And that's so I can deny being from the town where Pete Hegseth's pastor lives.
Okay,
Good.
so what is the Palouse?
The Palouse is the region in which Pullman and Moscow, which are two university towns that are otherwise in the middle of nowhere.
Yeah, like have you seen the default Windows background? Like
Yes.
Windows 95, right? Yeah, it's basically like that, except not in Ireland. Like, it's just like a really hey.
Proctor is now getting a picture off the wall to illustrate.
I'm not sure that he knows that this is a
Podcast?
audio only podcast.
Yeah. Well, I'm just
Don't
showing
tell
you
him.
guys
Don't
that
tell him.
we have an image of the rolling hills of the Palouse here.
Why are you showing me that, Proctor? God, what?
He got out.
Yeah, Central Washington is not the most amazing landscape other than the Columbia Gorge, which is gorgeous. I mean, maybe not like Grand Canyon level, but
All right. So in defense,
This is you have to drive past the Scablands, and once you drive past the Scablands, you're in the eastern Washington, which is just like Rockies.
Did they
he
transplant?
didn't make that term up. That's what they're the channeled scablands. That's what they're called.
No, I understand that. I'm just wondering if they transplanted the game Stalker there and didn't tell anyone. Is it the exclusion zone on top of all of this?
So the geological story there is actually kind of metal. This was all caused by the Great Missoula flood back during the last ice age. That essentially the entire state of Montana used to be an enormous lake with an ice dam on the west, and at one point that ice dam broke, and these millions and millions and millions of gallons of water ran out, and that's why you get this rolling hill pattern.
Yeah, Montana just drained out to the ocean.
It's essentially like the same pattern you would get on a beach, except it's hills, gigantic hills.
And you pricks made fun of us for a molasses flood. You only have water.
I mean, to be fair, nobody lived there. Certainly nobody lived there afterwards.
That's what we call a callback. It's
Nobody
a bad
lives there
one.
now. What are you talking?
look, there are a lot of potato farmers that would take exception with that particular comment, Lotax.
Yeah, that's Southern Idaho.
All 5 of them? Tractors aren't
Who
people,
lives there
George.
now? Lentil farmers and guys who want to lentil farmers, the only liberals in Idaho, and the guys who want to establish a Catholic theocracy in America, except it's Presbyterian.
Right. Yeah. That's Moscow for you.
All right.
Note that that's Moscow, not Moscow. It's spelled the same as Moscow, but
It used to be Hoghaven.
Moscow.
Well, I think we're going to end on that little bit of Idaho geography. Theo, thank you for joining us. And
compelling work.
yes, thank you for not spiraling with us. As always, this has been very fun, and I enjoyed talking to my buddies, and I hope y'all enjoyed listening too. If you get the chance, rate and review the podcast wherever you happen to have found us so that other people can find us too. And
And
yes,
if you If any of you know what this episode was about, can you please let me know?
We were having fun. That's what it was about.
That's why I already came up with the show title for y'all.
For Normal Men in Charlotte, I'm George.
In DC, I'm Proctor.
In outer Florida, I am Low Tech Speedrun Enjoyer.
And in Boston, I'm Ed.
Stay normal, y'all.
Bye-bye.